Planters, and today we're delighted to have Mr. Vinod Kumar, the President of India SME Forum, and Mr. Hardik, partner at the Deloitte India. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. So, Mr. Vinod, please talk to us about India's export program.
Well, India Exports is a program that we started as a pilot almost 2 years back, and we figured out that we could actually support micro, small, medium enterprises in being able to take their products to markets around the world through a specific program which could help them with compliance, standards, access to markets, buyer databases, and so on and so forth. And we formally launched this a little time back, which was launched by the Minister of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, Mr. Narayan Rane, and the DGF Tishri Sarangi. They launched the program in Delhi, and that's the program now we are actually doing outreach for throughout the country. The program aims to primarily support 2 lakh entrepreneurs.
Wonderful.
For becoming new exporters. You see, if you look at the total number of exporters that we have in India, it's a figure which is less than half a lakh.
Okay.
And that's the entire export that is happening from India, which also includes large enterprises, micro, small, medium, all of them. So what we are trying to say is, if we actually are able to train 2 lakh people, 2 lakh entrepreneurs in how to export and how to go forward with it, we will be able to see a tremendous amount of jump in terms of our export outcome, export sales.
Sure.
And while that will obviously help us with the foreign exchange stuff and all that, the most important thing it will do is also help us create employment in India.
Right. Wonderful. So, how can FTAs accelerate the export?
You see, well, so far major FTAs have been utilized by only large-scale companies.
Right.
Because micro or small or medium enterprises do not have the idea of how each FTA will help you in your localized product or HS code. So what we are doing is, each FTA we are breaking down in the sense in terms of which all product or product lines are going to get duty offsets, what sort of benefits, if today or in the future, whatever is going to happen, and how that can translate to competitiveness for the micro or small enterprise in India. And if we are able to put them together in front of enterprise, I'm sure enterprises will take it forward and actually be able to export to that country. And we have quite a few FTAs that we've entered in the last 8-10 years. And we need to get to a point where every micro or small entrepreneur understands that how he can utilize these FTAs, and that's precisely what we're trying to do.
Wonderful. So, Mr. Hardik, we are living in a compliance era, and I believe West Bengal has done certain amendments to benefit the SMEC. Can you throw light upon it?
Sure. So, if you see the growth of the trade and commerce which has happened over the e-commerce platforms, particularly for MSMEs, it has been tremendous in the last 10 years. Okay. And this is largely because of the fact that MSMEs prefer to have online sales channel for 2 reasons. One, it gives them a larger market reach, and second, it also helps them to give them a better distribution network and overall manage their supply chains. So from these 2 benefits, I think the growth and the volumes of whether it is a B2B supplies or whether it is going to be D2C sales is going to go tremendously over the e-commerce platform in years to come.
Sure.
Right. Now, one of the key challenges which the MSMEs are facing is from a GST standpoint. Now, what happens is, let's say I'm a bag seller who's in Jalandhar, okay, and if I have a tie-up with an e-commerce platform, if there's a customer, let's say down in South, and he wants to buy a bag, probably what I'll do is I'll keep some inventory in South, some in Jalandhar, and some in other states, right? Typically, this inventory of my product, which is say bags, is kept at all the warehouses, which is managed and operated by the e-commerce platform. So really, for me, I really don't have to worry about getting a place, having an infra, having my people sitting on all those places. Now, having said that, the problem is that given the fact that after the introduction of GST from 1st of July 2017, the way it has been fragmented, that every state you need to have a GST registration. Right? It's pretty challenging, obvious. Now, there is a concept called as space of business. Like for example, if I'm in, as I said, in the same way, if I'm in Jalandhar, if I'm selling bags down south, I manage my inventory by keeping it in the warehouse of the seller. of my e-commerce platform service provider. But then what happens is the state requires me to also have a GST registration. Fine, but it also requires that you need to have a physical presence, keep my records, keep my all of those books of accounts, have some people over there. So some sort of an infrastructure is required to be maintained. Now for me, I really don't need to do that. Why? Because if I'm managing my sales to my e-commerce platform, why really I need to have all of that physical infrastructure and people in all those states? So while this is a problem from GST, because GST, the law way it's worded, you really need to have that. Now there are two ways to look at it. One solution is while you take the registration in all of those states, fine, you comply with the requirements, keep it simple, but then you use the home state where you are registered. Like for example in Jalandhar, and you use that registration address to take registration in every other states, let's say 15-20 states. The tax authorities should probably stop insisting on having physical infrastructure or an office or a traditional conventional sort of a setup and even people in that state, which is effectively we call it as a virtual place of business. Virtually you can operate, stock the goods in the warehouse, and even in the warehouse you really don't need to have a demarcation like for this is an area which for a seller A, seller B, seller C. Typically that's not how warehouses are maintained and how are operated, right? So that's the other way to look at it. So overall, the way we look today is West Bengal State GST Authority, which is the government, has been kind enough to clarify that for e-commerce sellers, if you have stocking goods in a warehouse in a West Bengal, you don't need to have a separate demarcation, entry, exit points, and etc. You can keep it, add it as a part of your place of business, and continue with your transactions and business in West Bengal. Quite progressive. So having said that, I think the key ask would be from a GST standpoint is to have a concept of virtual place of business. Do not really insist for having physical presence in all those states, people, their office, etc. Gone are those days in the digital world where you can really operate through an electronic environment. And also, if there is a warehouse, don't really insist for really demarcation, entry, exit points. I think these are largely two key asks. But compliances have gone up. Idea is to see how we can actually make it more efficient and streamlined for MSMEs.
Right, that would be a beautiful scenario, and I
absolutely,
hope
absolutely,
states replicate.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Vinod, talk to us about the first program.
Well, you see, we have set up a division which is primarily for those that are in trade and retail. Now, the first division primarily supports all enterprises that are selling or trading or both online and offline. Or doing retail in any way. Why this was put in place was primarily, if you look at the MSME Act, which was way back in 2006 when it was promulgated, was primarily for manufacturers and service providers, not for traders. But it is only later on, which is just 2.5 years back, that the government of India has included traders also in the nomenclature of micro, small, or medium enterprises. Okay. That's why we had to open a new division which would specifically look after their interests, which would specifically help them, support them to actually gain in this knowledge economy which you have today. So whether you are a retailer, whether you are a seller, or whether you are a trader, you can now avail of various schemes of the government of India and support from the first organization for the growing and furthering your own business.
Okay. How about your women entrepreneurship program?
Well, the women program is a very important part of our organization. Sure. We've so far been able to align almost 7,000 plus women with, I'd say, sustainable livelihoods. And what we are looking at is now creating more and more exporters who are going to be women. In the last program that we did specifically for women entrepreneurs, which was for connecting them with exports along with UPS, ICICI and other partners, we were able to get 2,500 women to get trained, out of which what we've done is 513 people actually graduated, which means they became exporters, out of which 200 plus women have done businesses in terms of exports of more than 1 crore.
Awesome.
So, and this is a program that we are now enlarging to a wider number of women.
Excellent. So, Mr. Hardik, opportunities are limitless. So, what is the good news for the entrepreneurs and MSMEs?
I think the good news is that the government is quite receptive. The way I look at it is, at least from a tax standpoint and a tax policy standpoint, well, obviously the compliances have gone up. Okay, there is no doubt about it, and compliances will go up. Not only for the large players, but even for MSMEs, right? But the good part about compliance is that the compliance has gone more or less electronic. Gone are those days where you really have to sit in a tax administration office and exchange files and exchange notes, and everything is online. Even tax assessments, tax appeals, everything is faceless. So to that extent, I think that really benefits. Exchange of information is faster, processing time is faster. For example, if you need a tax registration or GST registration, within 7 days you get the number, or probably even lesser than that. Okay, so that's the efficiency which the tax administration has brought in across the spectrum, and which obviously benefits the MSMEs and SMEs. From a tax policy point of view, if you look at it, over the last 1 year, 1.5 years, I think the government has done a lot for MSMEs. For example, small sellers, allowing them to do away with the GST registration if they want to make online sales, giving them sort of exemptions. So looking at the threshold, so I think a lot has been done. Of course, it's a moving target. There is no perfection, but end of the day, the way I look at it, things are positive. Government being receptive, it's a positive sign, and I'm sure I see a brighter future for MSMEs, and particularly for exports. I think with more and more FTAs getting signed with a lot of other countries, particularly in Europe. Okay, so that should give a lot of trust to MSMEs overall.
Mr. Vinod, your final words for the young entrepreneurs.
Well, young entrepreneurs, this is the time to actually become an entrepreneur. There can be no better time in India's history when you have a formidable government that is keen on helping you set up your own business. You have an extremely easy export regime around the world, where a lot of countries that are standing as I'd say competition to you have higher tariff barriers than you.
Right.
So you have much better probabilities of competing with them. So no better time than now to actually get into business.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining in. It's been delightful to talk to you. Thank you so much.